My name is Florence Carrington. I'm 29 and I work in commercial real estate development, which basically means my job is to look at empty lots and old buildings and imagine what they could become with the right plan, the right structure. I used to think relationships work the same way. You meet, you share, you build, you're honest, you communicate, you lay a foundation. Then I met Adrian Cole. I met him 2 years ago at a charity gala downtown. One of those events with too much glassware and people pretending to care about the cause while networking for their careers. I was there because my firm bought a table. Adrian was there because, well, that's what he does. He plans events like that for a living. He was gorgeous in that tailored, polished way. Dark hair, perfect suit, easy smile. He moved through that ballroom like he owned it, hugging one client, clinking glasses with another, smoothly redirecting a server with a tray that was off schedule. He had this choreography to him. He spotted me sitting alone, pretending to check emails. He walked over, introduced himself, and within 10 minutes, he knew what I did, where I grew up, my favorite wine, and that I hated networking small talk. He laughed. You know what that means, right? What? I'm going to have to rescue you from at least 3 conversations tonight. And he did. Every time someone droned on about zoning laws or interest rates, Adrian would appear with a joke, a refill, or a fabricated reason to pull me away. We started dating a week later. We were serious within a month. That's Adrian's thing. Big gestures, quick escalations, dinners at trendy places, his hand at the small of my back. I've never felt this way before, after 6 weeks. He knew how to make moments feel cinematic. The highlight reel of us was gorgeous. It's the footage between those highlight clips that tells the real story. 3 months into our relationship, we were at his apartment having takeout on the couch. Some crime show was playing in the background, one of those episodes where the detectives interrogate everybody who ever knew the victim. Adrian muted the TV and turned to me like he was about to ask what I wanted for dessert. So, he said, casual, how many guys have you slept with? I laughed at first. That's a very smooth transition from pad thai to body count. He didn't laugh. His eyes stayed on me, sharp. I'm serious, Flo. If we're going to be serious, I need to know. I remember the word need rubbing me the wrong way. I don't really keep count, I said. Maybe 8, 9, over 10 years. He nodded slowly, like a doctor taking notes. Names? I actually choked on my noodles. Sorry, what? Names, he repeated. If we're building a life together, I deserve to know who they are. What if I run into one? What if they're still around? I need to protect us. Protect us. It sounded almost noble when he said it, like he was guarding our future and not just inventorying my history. I told him it felt invasive, that the past was the past, that what mattered was us now. He didn't yell. Adrian almost never yells. He just persisted. For the next 2 weeks, the topic hovered over everything. We'd be cooking dinner, and he'd say, I just don't want any surprises, Florence. We'd be brushing our teeth side by side, and he'd mumble around toothpaste. Trust is about transparency. If I said, this feels like an interrogation, he'd say, if you have nothing to hide, why is this so hard? Little barbs, sharpened with concern. I started to feel like a suspect in my own relationship. Eventually, I caved. One night I sat on his couch, staring at my own hands, and gave him a vague list. First names only, a couple of coworkers, a college boyfriend, an ex I was with for 3 years. I didn't give dates, missed details on purpose. He took it in like data. Why did you break up? Who ended it? Do you still think about him? I answered until I was exhausted and hollow. Then he hugged me. Thank you for being honest, he whispered. This is why I know we're solid. I can handle anything as long as I know. I believed him. 6 months later, we were at a wine bar when I decided to flip the question back. Okay, Mr. Transparency, I said lightly. How many women have you been with? For a split second, something flickered across his face. Then it was gone. My past is none of your business, he said calmly. I thought he was joking. I actually laughed. He didn't. I mean it, Flo. It's different for men. People love to judge. You wouldn't look at me the same way, so I don't talk about it. So you can grill me for names and reasons and timelines, but I can't ask you if you've ever had a girlfriend before me? I asked. I didn't grill you, he said. I clarified. And yes, I've had girlfriends. I'm not a monk, but I don't owe you a report file of my past. That's my boundary. Respect it. There it was, that word he loved. Boundary. The line that only ever seemed to go in one direction. I tried to push again, gently. Adrian, do you see how that feels like a double standard? He sighed like I was being emotional. God, women always make everything a double standard. You had your little list. I didn't freak out. Why are you obsessed with my past? Are you planning to judge me? I backed off, told myself he must have had a bad breakup, told myself men are socialized differently, told myself respecting boundaries was important. I am very good at telling myself stories that make other people look better and me look less hurt. Year 1 of our relationship, he started bringing up marriage. Not in a pushy way, more like throwing petals on the path. If we got married, I'd want a spring wedding. When we get married, I'll handle the planning. It's literally my job. You'd look insane in a backless dress. I wasn't opposed. On paper, Adrian was perfect. Successful, attentive, romantic. My friends loved him. My parents thought he was charming. The past thing was weird, but everyone has quirks, right? That's what I told myself. Then, one random Thursday, I went out for drinks with an old college friend, Marcus. We'd gone to the same state school. I hadn't seen him in person in a couple of years, but we still liked each other's posts and sent the occasional meme. We were at a crowded bar, shouting over the music, catching up on jobs and families. Marcus asked if I was seeing anyone. Yeah, I said, and I felt that little rush in my chest that people get when they talk about someone they love. His name's Adrian. He's an event planner. We're pretty serious. Might be talking about rings soon. Marcus grinned. Okay, Florence, okay, let me see this guy. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to my favorite photo. Adrian in a navy suit, hand on my waist, both of us smiling at the camera like we believed in forever, and held it out. Marcus took one look and his whole expression changed. His smile died. He coughed, actually choked on his beer. You okay? I asked, half laughing, half alarmed. He swallowed, wiped his mouth, eyes never leaving the screen. What did you say his last name was? Cole, Adrian Cole. Marcus stared at the photo for a solid 10 seconds. The noise of the bar faded into a dull hum around us. Then he looked up at me with a face I'd never seen on him before. Flo, he said quietly, we need to talk. Marcus didn't say another word at the bar. He just grabbed his beer, nodded toward the door, and led me outside into the cold night air. The street was buzzing with traffic and people, but in my memory, it's weirdly quiet, like everything faded except his voice. He leaned against the brick wall, took a long breath, and looked at me. You said his name is Adrian Cole, he repeated. Event planner, dark hair, smug face. I frowned. He's not smug. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Flo. That man is the textbook definition of smug, but that's not the point. He pulled out his phone, tapped for a moment, then turned the screen toward me. It was an old photo, grainy, low res, clearly taken at a college party. The lighting was terrible, the kitchen messy. But there he was, Adrian, younger, a little thinner, hair slightly longer, standing with his arm around a girl in a sorority t-shirt. Same eyes, same smile I'd fallen for at that charity gala. My stomach dropped. Okay, I said slowly. So, you went to school with him. Why is that a crisis? Marcus didn't answer right away. He took another drink, like he was buying time to decide how brutally honest he wanted to be. Do you remember Delta Chi Omega? He asked. I nodded. The sorority with the ridiculous house, the one that always had the best parties. He gave me a look. Yeah, them. We'd both spent enough nights in that house to know details. The creaky stairs, the way the living room always smelled like cheap vodka and perfume, the basement where people hooked up behind laundry machines when the bedrooms were full. I suddenly didn't like where this was going. Marcus, I said carefully, what are you trying to tell me? He sighed and ran a hand over his face. I don't know how to say this nicely, so I'm just going to say it. Your boyfriend, Adrian, he didn't just date around in college. He had a whole thing with Delta Chi Omega. Thing, I repeated. You're going to have to be more specific. He slept his way through almost the entire house in one semester, Marcus said flatly. 14 girls. Same sorority, same 4 months. The words hit me like a physical shove. I laughed, because that's what my brain does when it's overloaded. You're exaggerating. No one. Marcus shook his head. I'm not. The guys in my house kept a tally on the basement wall. It was a joke at first. Then he kept adding to it. It became legendary. Legendary. There's a funny thing about that word. When you love someone, legendary sounds romantic. When you hear it used to describe them racking up bodies like a scoreboard, it feels like a slap. My mind started doing frantic math. 14 in one semester. That's what, 1 a week? Sometimes more? I could actually feel my chest tighten. I don't care that he has a past, I said automatically, even as nausea crawled up my throat. I'm not purity policing him. I know, Marcus cut in gently. I'm not telling you this to shame him, or them. It's college. People hook up, whatever. But you need to know he had a reputation, and that he knows he had that reputation. He pulled up another photo, this time a group shot in the Delta Chi Omega living room. Girls in matching shirts, solo cups in hand, couches packed. And there, in the back, almost blurred by motion but still unmistakable, was Adrian. Arm draped over a girl's shoulders. That same grin. Fall of my senior year, Marcus said. That's when the tour happened. Tour? I echoed, my voice sounding far away. He winced. Yeah, they used to call him the sorority circuit. Some people called it the house tour behind his back, because he was going room to room, I guess. It was a whole thing. A bitter little laugh escaped him. We thought it was hilarious back then. Guys being idiots, you know. Can he hit double digits? That kind of garbage. I didn't think about the girls, or how it might feel if someone was seriously dating him later. The world tilted. Adrian on my couch, asking for names. Adrian bookmarking ring designs. Adrian muting the TV to demand my number like he was interviewing me for a security clearance. My past was a file he got to audit. His past was a sealed record. How sure are you? I asked, clinging to denial with bloody fingers. Maybe you're mixing him up with someone else. Adrian isn't exactly an unusual... Florence, Marcus said softly. I'm sure. We partied with him. I was there when he walked out of that house at 6 a.m. more than once. He bragged about it. We thought he was a legend. He paused. When you said you might marry him, I couldn't not tell you. I stared at the photo in his hand. The old living room. The familiar sorority banner on the wall. Adrian's face. I wasn't even angry about the number. That's the stupid part. People have pasts. College is messy. 14 is a lot, but it's not a crime. What made my skin crawl was the hypocrisy. The nights he'd grilled me over 8 or 9 people spread over 10 years, like I was on trial. The way he'd said, my past is none of your business, while sitting on that story. I didn't remember much of the rest of that night. I know I thanked Marcus. I know he apologized again, as if this was somehow his fault. I know I went home in a haze. Adrian was at my place, cooking dinner when I walked in. He'd let himself in with the key I'd given him. Hey, babe, he said, turning from the stove, smiling. You're just in time. Perfect, right? He kissed me, tasted like garlic and wine, and for a second I wanted to lean into it and pretend the last hour hadn't happened. But the image of that old photo burned behind my eyes. How was drinks? He asked cheerfully. Informative, I said. He didn't notice the edge in my voice. Or maybe he did, and chose to ignore it. Adrian is very good at ignoring inconvenient details. That night, I lay awake listening to him breathe next to me, staring at the ceiling. I replayed every interrogation he'd put me through about my exes, every time he'd used the word honesty like a weapon, every time I'd felt small and exposed while he stayed wrapped in secrets. By morning, my disbelief had turned into something colder, sharper. I needed verification, not because I thought Marcus was lying, but because I needed to see the pattern with my own eyes. The next day, on my lunch break, I dug through my old group chats and Instagram follows from college. I still had a few Delta Chi Omega girls on social media. We weren't close anymore, but we'd liked each other's engagement photos and baby announcements over the years. I messaged 3 of them, starting with, "Hey, random question, do you remember an Adrian Cole from State?" The responses were almost comically consistent. First reply, "Oh my God. Yes. Please tell me you're not dating him." Second, "Wow, that name is a blast from the past. Are you okay?" Third, "The event planner Adrian. Are we talking about the same guy who did the tour of our house?" I asked, carefully, if they'd been involved with him. One sent a laughing, crying emoji and said, "I was number 3 according to the wall." Another, "Pretty sure I was 8 or 9. That semester was chaos." The third, "I was his grand finale before winter break. They called him the sorority circuit for a reason." It wasn't the fact that they'd slept with him that twisted my stomach. They all seemed to have moved on. Some talked about it like a bizarre anecdote from another life. One of them wrote, "Honestly, it was college. No hard feelings, but I wouldn't marry him without a shadow of a doubt." I stared at that line for a long time. When Adrian came over that evening, he was in his usual good mood, talking about a corporate holiday party he'd booked. At some point, while we were on the couch, I asked casually, "So, where did you say you went to college again?" He glanced over, surprised. "State, same as you. You forget?" "Oh, right." I tried to keep my tone light. "Did you know any girls from Delta Chi Omega?" For half a second, his jaw tightened. Then he smoothed it over. "Yeah, I knew some people there. We all partied. Why?" "Did you date anyone from that sorority?" I asked, keeping my eyes on the TV. He muted the sound. "We're not doing this," he said. "Doing what?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Digging into my past. We've talked about this, Florence. My past is not up for dissection. It's none of your business." I turned to him. "My past was your business," I said quietly. "You made it your business. Names, reasons, timelines. And you gave them to me," he snapped. "Because that's what partners do. They're honest. I'm not asking you for anything I'm not willing to." He stopped himself, too late. "You just said your past is off limits," I reminded him. "So yeah, you are asking for something you're not willing to give." He rolled his eyes, leaning back. "You're twisting my words. This is exactly why I don't like talking about my history. Women always weaponize it. You're not entitled to know what I did before you. It doesn't affect us. What matters is us now." I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked, "Would it have affected us if I'd slept with 14 guys in your fraternity in one semester and never told you?" He flinched. "That's not funny," he said. "I'm not joking." Something passed through his eyes then. Fear, maybe, or guilt, before the shutters slammed back down. "You're being dramatic," he said. "You're looking for a fight where there isn't one. If you can't respect my boundaries, maybe we're not as compatible as I thought." There it was again. Boundaries. Weaponized and one-sided. I dropped it. Out loud, anyway. We went to bed that night with our backs facing each other, a gulf of unspoken truth stretching between us. For the next 2 weeks, I lived in that gulf, walking around my own life like it was a stage set, watching us from the rafters. Adrian kept talking about our future, about apartments we could upgrade to, about rings he thought I deserved, about venues he'd book at cost because he knew the right people. He didn't know that every time he said, "when we get married," my brain replayed Marcus's voice saying, 14 girls in one semester. And those old photos of him, with his arms casually draped over other women. He didn't know that I had seen the wall he tried to pretend didn't exist. I started to realize something. I didn't have a transparency problem. He did. He loved information when he held it and hated it when it threatened his image. He wanted my past to be a mirror he could examine from every angle. He wanted his past to be a locked door. And somewhere in the middle of that realization, a thought settled into place. It didn't arrive all at once. It slid in slowly, like a shadow growing at sunset. If he was never going to open that door voluntarily, maybe I didn't need to beg him to. Maybe I just needed to turn on the lights in the room where he thought no one was looking. I remember the exact night the plan took shape. We were out to dinner, and he was scrolling through ring designs on his phone, turning the screen to me. 3 carats at least, he said. Platinum band? I mean, my wife has to have something that reflects me, right? I smiled because that's what he expected. Inside, another thought answered, "You want a big show, Adrian? Fine, I'll give you one." I didn't say no when he talked about engagement parties and speeches and making everything unforgettable. I just nodded and filed away every detail. By the time he actually got down on one knee, champagne and candles and the whole romantic production, I already knew my answer. Not just to the proposal, but to the question he'd never thought I'd dare ask in front of anyone. When Adrian proposed, we were at this impossibly photogenic rooftop restaurant, the kind with floating candles and glass cylinders and a skyline view that makes people say, "Wow," even when they don't mean it. He'd planned everything perfectly. Of course he had. Planning was his art, his weapon, his armor. The string lights reflected in his eyes when he dropped to one knee, and for a split second, I saw the man I used to love, the one who rescued me from boring gala conversations, the one who made me believe in cinematic moments. Then he opened the ring box. A 2 1-carat diamond in white gold. Not the 3-carat platinum ring he had lectured me about. Not the one he said a woman of my caliber deserved. Not the one he'd insisted he'd buy because your ring should reflect my taste. I recognized the exact setting. It was the budget-conscious but still shiny version of the one he'd shown me. He said, "Florence Carrington, will you marry me?" His voice was soft, trembling, like he truly believed this was the beginning of forever. And I said yes. I said yes like a woman caught in a beautiful moment. I said yes like someone who had forgiven everything. I said yes like someone in love. Inside, I whispered, "This isn't the beginning, it's the setup." The restaurant erupted in applause. Adrian was glowing. absolutely glowing, like he'd just won an award for best performance in a leading role. He didn't notice the way my smile never touched my eyes. He was already dreaming out loud. We'll throw an engagement party first. Something elegant, big, black tie. You'll look unbelievable. I'll take care of everything. I placed my hand on his chest. I have a few old friends I want to invite from my college years. He grinned. Of course, we'll put them on the list. He had no idea that list was already being written. I reached out to Marcus first. He answered before the first ring finished. Do you want backup? He asked immediately. I want introductions, I replied. He exhaled like he'd been waiting for this. Marcus sent me the names of the girls from Delta Chi Omega who still lived within driving distance. 5 women from Adrian's semester of legendary achievements. Their messages were priceless. OMG, I remember him. Wow. Is this about the tour? He told you about us, right? I almost laughed out loud at that one. I'm not surprised he's still hiding it. If he gave you grief about your past, absolutely send me the time and place. I told them exactly what he'd done, how he'd interrogated me about every man I'd dated while refusing to acknowledge even one woman he'd been with, how he weaponized honesty, how he turned my past into a microscope while burying his own. And every single one of them agreed, not because they hated him. They didn't. Some even remembered him fondly, but all of them said the same thing. He deserves to be humbled. We arranged a separate group chat, just us 6 women, a secret sisterhood bound by poetic justice. When Adrian proposed, we were at this impossibly photogenic rooftop restaurant, the kind with floating candles and glass cylinders, and a skyline view that makes people say, wow, even when they don't mean it. He'd planned everything perfectly. Of course he had. Planning was his art, his weapon, his armor. The string lights reflected in his eyes when he dropped to one knee, and for a split second, I saw the man I used to love, the one who rescued me from boring gala conversations, the one who made me believe in cinematic moments. Then he opened the ring box. A 2.1 carat diamond in white gold. Not the 3-carat platinum ring he had lectured me about. Not the one he said a woman of my caliber deserved. Not the one he'd insisted he'd buy, because your ring should reflect my taste. I recognized the exact setting. It was the budget-conscious but still shiny version of the one he'd shown me. He said, Florence Carrington, will you marry me? His voice was soft, trembling, like he truly believed this was the beginning of forever. And I said yes. I said yes like a woman caught in a beautiful moment. I said yes like someone who had forgiven everything. I said yes like someone in love. Inside, I whispered, this isn't the beginning, it's the setup. The restaurant erupted in applause. Adrian was glowing, absolutely glowing, like he'd just won an award for best performance in a leading role. He didn't notice the way my smile never touched my eyes. He was already dreaming out loud. We'll throw an engagement party first. Something elegant, big, black tie. You'll look unbelievable. I'll take care of everything. I placed my hand on his chest. I have a few old friends I want to invite, from my college years. He grinned. Of course, we'll put them on the list. He had no idea that list was already being written. The invitations start the next morning. I reached out to Marcus first. He answered before the first ring finished. Do you want backup? He asked immediately. I want introductions, I replied. He exhaled like he'd been waiting for this. Marcus sent me the names of the girls from Delta Chi Omega who still lived within driving distance. 5 women from Adrian's semester of legendary achievements. Their messages were priceless. OMG, I remember him. Wow. Is this about the tour? He told you about us, right? I almost laughed out loud at that one. I'm not surprised he's still hiding it. If he gave you grief about your past, absolutely send me the time and place. I told them exactly what he'd done, how he'd interrogated me about every man I'd dated while refusing to acknowledge even one woman he'd been with, how he weaponized honesty, how he turned my past into a microscope while burying his own. And every single one of them agreed. Not because they hated him. They didn't. Some even remembered him fondly. But all of them said the same thing. He deserves to be humbled. We arranged a separate group chat, just us, 6 women, a secret sisterhood bound by poetic justice. The plan takes shape. We met over video call. 5 faces appeared on my screen, each one different, each with her own story, but all sharing the same spark when they talked about Adrian. Not bitterness, not heartbreak, just clarity. Kiara, number 3, laughed first. So, you want us to give speeches? At his engagement party? Not just speeches, I said. Introductions. Memories. The truth he's hidden for years. Jenna, number 8, tapped her pen thoughtfully. You want us to reveal our numbers? If you're comfortable. Oh, I'm comfortable, she grinned. He offered to protect me from labels when he ghosted after finals. I'll give him a label. Somewhere in the background, another girl, number 10, raised a glass. For symmetry. We laid out the order. Kara, number 3. The calm, classy opener. A simple recollection that tied Adrian clearly to the sorority. Jenna, number 8. The one with the most specific, undeniable story. Michelle, number 5. Short, direct, the yes, this absolutely happened confirmation. Elaine, number 10. The detail dropper. Names, dates, everything. Sabrina, number 14. The finale. The nickname drop. The sorority circuit. Each woman agreed to keep it tasteful but unmistakable. Real memories. Real clarity. Real consequences. I watched them talk, these women Adrian had turned into secret files he hoped would stay buried. I felt something shift in my chest. Not revenge, not satisfaction. Something colder. A sense of balance. Adrian's blissful ignorance. Meanwhile, Adrian was living his best life. He threw himself into planning like a general strategizing a battlefield. Venue walkthroughs, linen swatches, menu tastings. He would lean over color palettes with this soft pride and say things like, "Our engagement party will be legendary." Legendary, that word again. He had no idea why. He'd come to me with charts and diagrams of seating arrangements. "We'll put your friends close to the stage. My side can go near the dance floor." I smiled sweetly and said, "Perfect." He kissed my forehead. "I love how easy you make everything, Flo." Inside, I whispered, "It's only easy because you think you're the one in control." The night before, the ballroom was set, the guest list locked, and Adrian was buzzing with energy. He slipped into bed behind me, wrapping an arm around my waist. Tomorrow is going to be unforgettable. I stared into the darkness. It was going to be unforgettable, yes, just not for the reason he believed. His breathing slowed as he drifted to sleep, oblivious. I lay awake, eyes open, pulse calm. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't second-guessing myself. I wasn't afraid of the fallout. The only thing I felt was the steady, unwavering certainty of a woman who had been pushed too far, too often, and finally stopped playing fair. Tomorrow, the past he tried so hard to bury would stand on a stage in front of 150 people. Tomorrow, the sealed door he hid behind would be kicked wide open. Tomorrow, Adrian Cole would learn that double standards don't stay buried. They rise, they speak, they testify. The engagement party fallout didn't wait until morning. It began the moment Adrian fled the ballroom, pushing through the doors like the air itself had betrayed him. Guests parted, murmuring, some filming discreetly behind champagne glasses. Others stared at me like I'd conjured a storm inside a cathedral. And maybe I had. I walked outside for a breath of air. The night was cool, soft, indifferent, so unlike the chaos behind me. The city lights glittered far below, oblivious. I closed my eyes and inhaled deeply. The sound of heels clicking across marble snapped my eyes open. It was Adrian's mother. Her mascara was smudged. She looked shaken. "Florence," she said sharply, "why would you do something so cruel, in front of everyone?" I held her gaze. "Ask your son what he never told me." She hesitated, but she didn't ask. She walked away instead. People don't seek truth when lies are more comforting. The next morning, Adrian showed up at my apartment at 8 a.m. Sharp, loud, insistent knocks. I opened the door. He looked wrecked, hair unstyled, tie missing, shirt wrinkled. The perfectly groomed event planner was gone. What stood on my doorstep was a man whose curated narrative had shattered overnight. He pushed inside without waiting to be invited. What the hell was last night? His voice cracked, rage layered over humiliation. "What it looked like," I said. He spun around. "You humiliated me, Florence, in front of 150 people, in front of my family. That was abusive." I crossed my arms. "Did you feel exposed? Violated? Judged?" He froze. "My past doesn't define me." "That's what I said," I replied evenly. "But you demanded I give you every detail of my past, every name, every reason, every timeline, while sitting on the fact that you—" He cut me off. "It was college. It didn't mean anything." "It wasn't the number, Adrian. It was the hypocrisy." He flinched like I'd slapped him. I stepped closer. "You made me sit on your couch and justify 8 people over 10 years while you hid 14 in 1 semester. You used honesty as a weapon. You made transparency my obligation and secrecy your right." His voice fell to a whisper. "I didn't want you to judge me, and I didn't want you to interrogate me," I said. "Yet you did." Adrian shook his head, pacing like a man trying to outrun his own shadow. "You didn't have to do it publicly. You could have talked to me privately. I stared at him without blinking. I tried. You shut the door, so I opened it. He grabbed his hair with both hands. You're vindictive. You're insane. You ruined my reputation. I laughed, soft, sad. Your reputation wasn't ruined. It was revealed. He pointed at the door, breathing hard. No man will ever date you after this. Ever. You doxed your own fiancé. I stepped closer, quiet but cold. No, Adrian, I warned your future wife. Whoever she ends up being, she deserves a truth you were never going to give her. His jaw clenched. For a split second, I saw pain beneath the anger, a man terrified not of me, but of his own reflection. He walked to the door and paused. You'll regret this, he said. No, I replied. You will. He left, and the silence that followed felt like oxygen. The community reacts. The next 48 hours were a circus. Some friends called me heartless, saying I'd orchestrated psychological warfare. Others sent messages like, he needed that reality check. I always felt he was controlling. Honestly, iconic. One Delta Chi Omega alum messaged, we used to joke someone would marry him and never know. You made sure no one lives in that lie. I didn't respond, but I saved that message. Adrian tries to rewrite the story. 3 days later, he started damage control. He told mutual friends I'd sabotaged the relationship, that I'd wanted to hurt him, that I couldn't handle happiness. He left out the interrogations, the double standards, the lies by omission. Most people didn't buy it. Some did. Truth rarely wins in popularity contests, but it wins eventually. The strangest encounter. About a month after the engagement imploded, I saw Adrian at a coffee shop. He was with a new woman, young, polished, wearing a beige coat and perfect curls, the kind of woman who would believe his curated charm, the kind who'd let him set all the rules without realizing she'd lost every negotiation before it began. She smiled at him with admiration. He looked at me with panic. I raised my coffee cup at him with a polite nod. He turned white. She looked confused. They left quickly, and I felt nothing. No triumph, no bitterness, no pain. Just closure. Real closure. 3 months later, the text. I was working late when my phone buzzed. Adrian. A long message. He said therapy made him realize he'd used transparency as control. He admitted he had issues with narrative dominance. He said I'd exposed him, but that the exposure forced him to confront himself. He said he was sorry. He said he hoped I could forgive him someday. I read the whole thing twice. Then I replied, I'm glad you're working on yourself. I don't regret what I did. You needed to know what it felt like to have your past turned into a microscope. I hope you never do that to anyone again. His reply came instantly. Fair? Just one word. But it was the truest thing he ever said to me. The epilogue. A final confession. People ask if I'd do it again. If I'd blow up my own engagement to expose a man who tried to bury his own truth. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder too. Was it too much? Could I have confronted him privately? Could I have walked away quietly? Maybe. But then I remembered the moment Sabrina, the last speaker, said his nickname into the microphone. The instant the room gasped. The moment Adrian realized the world finally saw him without the script he wrote. The flicker of pure horror in his eyes. That moment wasn't cruel. It was clarity. It was justice. Maybe not perfect justice, but poetic justice. They used to call him the sorority circuit. And that night, in that ballroom he designed to perfection, he got a reunion he never planned to host.